I'd like to call this meeting to order, the select board on April 15, 2025 at 6 o'clock. Additions and deletions from the agenda.
Yeah, just a few, I want to add a few more liquor and tobacco licenses. First class for Pizza Chef, third class for Dreamscape. And then 2 tobacco for Cumberland Farms and 1 liquor license for them. And the chair has those people in front of them. I also think, unless there's objection, we can get rid of the reserve fund byline, agenda calendar conversations. I don't think we're prepared to have either one of those things.
Right.
And we also have a sewer abatement.
Yeah, sorry, and sewer abatements as well.
Where do you want that?
Uh,
To vote?
We can put that at the
right after
discussions.
the liquor license.
Yeah. Citizens' comments. Managers report.
Just a few things. So a lot of my updates are actually on the agenda. So one, I held my second annual municipal town manager summit 2 weeks ago. We had about 22 town managers in the Upper Valley attend, some from Chittenden County as well, with the former Mayor Burlington attend, but communities, 2 rivers. Talked a lot about shared services, realization, economic development, housing. Being a town manager in today's world was very fruitful, very good conversation, and has already led to us having a temp in the office based on recommendations through that group. So very happy to do that. I want to thank the Woodstock Resort, our Witchy Yacht Club, and Mascoma Bank for sponsoring some of the stuff. We'll look forward to doing next year as well. Next, it is for lack of a better phrase, dispatcher week. So recognition of dispatchers in the country. So I want the moment to thank our dispatchers. They're there 24/7, working, taking all the phone calls, are all the emergency calls, the question about dogs being loose. I run the gamut. For those of you who haven't met dispatchers, extremely dedicated. We have one right now that's working a 12-day in a row shift, 12 hours a day because someone's on vacation. So that person is willingly showing up 12 days in a row for 12 hours each day to get their job done, make sure we're staffed. There are people there who work night shifts, midnight shifts every single day. And so I just want to take a moment to thank them and appreciate all the work they do. Last thing is this week, I filed the last yearly report for the ARPA funds through the U.S. Treasury Department. There'll be one more thing to fill out, which will be the closeout form. The town and the village has expended all their costs, so that's good. I will say we should all hold our breath. Every municipality in the country got an email last month telling us that they're going to be going through ARPA funds much more difficult than they have in the past and asking questions and demanding paperwork. We're hoping that we follow federal guidelines, that they won't come looking for us, and if they did, they wouldn't find anything, but that's just, I want to clear out this full aware that email went from the Treasury Department to all municipalities as far as I know. That's all I have.
Okay. Next up is liquor licenses and tobacco licenses for Shine Associates, Worthy Kitchen, Plaza, Monbear, Village Butcher, 4 Mechanic Street, P&P Restaurant,
Pizza Chef, Green Bay Coffee,
yep,
and Cumberland Farm.
Okay. I like motion to approve the liquor license and tobacco license pending state approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Going to the sewer abatements?
Yeah.
So we, in front of the board, I don't know if someone had to speak to it from the village and not, but they had a higher than normal sewer bill this year. What they told us happened is snow fell off the roof, the spigot broke. water was leaking for an extended amount of time until they found out about it. We do a backup of the bill last year to show kind of the difference between what a normal bill looks like and what this bill looks like. So I asked them for an abatement on the board, so you can choose to abate it to the cost they paid last year, or not to.
Does this circumstance fall into we kind of made guidelines for sewer abatements last year? Does this circumstance fall under any of?
I think it falls in a gray area where, it's the responsibility of the owner to know what's going on. But at the same time, if the spigot was covered
Yeah.
in snow and they're not being aware of it till it's too late.
I'm fine abating this as long as there's a way, is there a way to not make it the exact amount they paid last year, but like proportionate to the sewer budget expenses this year, because everybody's rates went up this year?
Yeah, you could, agree to, pay to the bill last year with the standard rate increase was, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I'll make a motion to, abate the sewer bill of 41 Pleasant Street to last year's annual bill plus the standard or median, sewer increase this year.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, village flower basket expenses. I think you all have the email that said the maintenance of the baskets is $7,000 for the year. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Your
Is
thought?
anybody gonna present on this?
Is there any?
I think we could lower that,
Sorry, just you have this,
excuse me,
state your name and so we, for the record, for the records.
Woodstock Chamber of Commerce. I'm presenting a variety or a lot of petitions that, let me do that state we, the undersigned merchants and residents of Woodstock requested the select board assign funds from the 1% rooms, meals and alcohol tax for the purchase and maintenance of the annual flower baskets in the Woodstock Village. Every year for 6 months, residents and visitors alike enjoy the beauty, sense of well-being these flowers bring to Woodstock, the most beautiful small town in New England. The resulting economic benefit is symbiotic with a sense of beauty the visitors experience. The 1% for the economic development is their source of funding for this beautification project, which benefits both residents and visitors. So just presenting this to. Thank you.
So I guess I'll start. I haven't, Beth, do you want to stay at the podium? I have an email from you dated March 24th that said the chamber was going to raise money for the flower baskets. Has something changed?
We will raise some money for the flower baskets. If we can't, if this doesn't work, we will try to raise almost $9,000, $8,000 for the flower baskets.
And
We have donations already, which I spoke about, I think, earlier, of monies to pay for the flowers themselves for the high school. What we don't have is the money to maintain the flower baskets. And
that
we've
is the-
already purchased the soil,
and that's the $7,000 cost.
right?
Okay.
I think I could negotiate it down to 6,000.
I mean, I guess, thank you. My feeling is this, I don't disagree. I think the flower baskets are something we should fund. My issue is how we fund them. I think it makes sense for us to fund this. I guess what I'll say is, I know when we talked about funding this last year out of the Economic Development Fund, we said that that would be the last year we fund it. Because the chamber had intended to raise funds. Given that that hasn't happened. And if I could play Carrie for a second, last year she said we could do small things and big things, and I don't disagree. I do think it's imperative for us to fund this, however, I think to prevent this same request from coming up year after year, I'm going to make two possible suggestions. One is that we place this in the general fund and fund this from the budget, and voters can vote every year on its inclusion moving forward. Or that we ask the trustees to put it in their budget as they have identified an actual objective for village beautification. I don't know what Greg or Ray,
That makes sense to me.
which one?
Either or.
Okay.
Other than, or both. Well, half and half, you know what I mean?
And I also clarification question, when you say general fund, do you mean have it actually in the?
In the town's
budget,
operating
or
budget.
Our petition, the select board puts on how many votes separately from everything else.
No, I think this should be included out of the operating budget.
Okay.
I don't think this should be this. I think this can be, just like last year, we said we would take on the operating expenses associated with taking care of Tito's Landing and take that out of the Economic Development Commission fund because it's an ongoing expense. I think if we want this to be an ongoing expense, which I think it should be, then it should be out of the budget. The question is like, do we want to fund it or do we think it's appropriate for the village to fund it?
I think both,
Splitsies,
split it.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense.
Maybe we want to hear from our constituents. Feel free to come to the podium, Jeffrey.
Hi, Jeffrey Khan, village resident and village trustee. So I'm glad you want to see this funded because it benefits the resident, well, visitors, and it increases 1% tax by the very fact that visitors who have a great experience here recommend Woodstock. It's all symbiotic, and one thing adds to the other.
Yeah.
So the 1% tax, which gets used for many purposes, gets increased by this amongst other factors that increase it. And I think it's the most appropriate source for you to take it from, as opposed to the taxpayers' dollars. As far as the village is concerned, this benefits the entire town, as well as the economic impact of people coming to Woodstock. So it's not just the village concern. But I don't even think it should be from the town taxpayer fund. It should come from the 1% tax, where it's come from in the past, which is to a greatest extent supported by the visitors. And I want to also emphasize one other fact. We're facing a difficult time ahead, we being the business community in Woodstock. Because of the tariffs that the government has imposed, and because of the lack of tourism from overseas as well as Canada that we're expecting this summer, as well as the possibility of recession. All of these factors are going to make the economic outlook difficult for the near term ahead of us. And anything that we can do to support that, I think is really important right now. And I really think the 1% tax is the obvious place to take that money. And it's a very small percentage of that. It's less than 3% of that tax that we take, the monies that we take in. I also think, although it's not what you're discussing tonight, there's one other factor. These flowers are great 6 months of the year. And by the way, Roger and Sardi does a fabulous job working with them. It's not a job for the DPW. It involves deadheading, it involves constant maintenance, and they looked great last year because of that. So we're happy that he wants to do it again. The other thing is the lights in the winter for over 4 months of the winter, which again serve the same purpose in a time of darkness for those of us who live here as well as here. So although that's not on tonight's agenda, I think that's the other. It's less money by far, but I think it's really important. And this is about the town, business community, not just about the Chamber of Commerce. So I think I'd ask you to consider it from that point of view.
Jeffrey, the issue is not whether we fund it. I think we're all in agreement about the value that it brings to the town. The issue is how we fund it. And I think that the historical use of the EDC is something of the economic development, and community fund is something we're looking to change. That's why we made goals and objectives last year.
So
Just because we've historically done it that way does not mean we're going to continue doing it. And I think that it is important enough to your point, and it's such a little cost that including it in the town budget should really, if it is as meaningful as you say, and as symbiotic as you say, be absolutely fine.
Okay, but on the other hand, I'm not talking about the EDC, I'm talking about a source of funding that exists without the existence of the EDC. That's the 1%.
I agree.
Tax, which was created for economic development.
Yeah.
And so I think it's appropriate to take it from there than rather asking taxpayers an additional, from their pockets. This
Well-
money, the 1% is primarily from out of state pockets, the majority of it. So I think that makes more sense, but anyway,
Thank
that's what
you.
I'd like you to consider.
Thank you.
It makes sense. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Do you want to entertain a motion for the lights as well, so we're not back here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a figure for the lights?
The lights are, the chamber that works with, two, tree services to donate their time, which comes to approximately $9,000 to hang the lights with 2 bucket trucks each, et cetera, full days, full crew. And so the cost of the lights themselves are just under $3,000. Now, I can't tell you with the tariff from China what they will be in 2025. But last year, we spent just about $2,900.
I would like for us to find a way to recycle the same lights every year. I know
I'll
we've been,
leave them up.
or leave them up. We've been cutting them off the tree and it sounds like it creates more costs to buy them every year, especially with the uncertain economic future we have.
We have worked really hard to do that. Quite honestly, it is not something that we do lightly. But if you just talk to Brenda Blakeman, one of your trustees, her lights and Susie, the lights that are right there have been hanging down because a truck hits them. It means that 6 strands are no good because the truck has pulled them. We have really tried. It's not like, something that is in someone's front yard. It's the traffic, it's the people, it's the kids, it's people and the weather.
Okay,
And
so they
we-
can't be up all year round. Can they be taken off instead of cut down?
That's a donation of time. I would have to ask our tree services. We actually met as a board of directors on Elm and Central with cardboard, wrapped them all, took them out, put them up above the chamber facilities. They didn't work. So
Just
that's
anecdotally, I would add that I don't think that lights are designed to last outside more than a year. So I don't know if it's a real savings. It's Carrie. I'm sorry I was late.
so.
Okay. So what's the total, Beth?
This, in 2024, it was 2,900 plus or minus, some cents. Next year, I can't tell you what they'll be from China, Woodstock Home and Hardware, our local community. Orders them at cost for us. And last year it was Arborscapes and Timber Tenders who donated more than a day each of full crew and buckets to hang them
Okay.
and take them down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Carrie, were you here when I made a suggestion about how we allocate the funds for this?
I wouldn't, would you mind repeating?
No problem. So I suggested to prevent this request from keeping to come up every year from the Economic Development and Community Fund, that we decide separately procedurally how we want to handle requests from that fund, but also that we either move this into our operating budget or that we ask the trustees to put it in their budget as they've identified village beautification as an objective. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Could we share that with the trustees? If
That's
they're
what-
not amenable?
Yeah. All right,
Yeah, I suggested splitting the costs, every.
Okay.
50/50.
I think that sounds fair.
Mention to Gary, my concept of the 1% tax as a funding.
that's where we're funding it right now. We're funding it out of the Economic Development Commission. The problem is that we want to limit how many times we have to have this conversation. I think this is a
Not
work,
the EDC, the 1% tax.
I'm aware,
Yeah.
Jeffrey. We have other things we want to spend that money on. Okay, so I guess I will make a motion. Roger,
I just have a quick comment. This is Roger Logan, Woodstock Village. I think to the extent possible, you should not put recurring expenses into the 1% tax that's going to be there every year until the end of time. I would say that anything that comes out of that money should have a sunset to it. This is essentially town maintenance or village maintenance. So I would suggest it does make sense to take it out of the general budget. Thanks.
Thank you.
okay. So I guess I'll make a motion. I want to do two things. I would like to make that motion, but I also would like for us to maybe develop some guidelines for how we want to handle these requests procedurally going forward. Because I think it makes sense, to Roger's point, to determine like how we treat the Economic Development Commission, Economic Development and Community Fund from now on. I think it's largely operated as an R&D fund, as Roger pointed out at our last meeting, but to that point, it was to see if things could be successful on their own or not. And those that are successful or that the community appreciates, we should look to see how we can make them sustainable within our budget. So I will make the motion to split the expenses of both the flower baskets and the lights moving forward with the village trustees.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Is there an advantage? I guess we know where the money's gonna come from as far as lights go, ordering them now before we're worried about prices going up. You know what you gotta order? Just a thought, I don't know.
I mean, I'm happy to talk with Leanne. For sure, and
Doesn't matter when we buy them.
no, we just have to store them somewhere. But, no, they'll store them. Yeah, we'll order them.
I mean, this might not happen every year, but if we're worried about the prices going up too much, maybe it would look. Maybe you should look into it, I don't know, just a
No,
thought.
that's a good.
I would just, Beth, can you touch base with me tomorrow on this and we can talk next steps? Because the money's gonna stay with the town, so it's just a different process now, so.
Oh, okay.
Get a 4-year supply.
We expect all the lights.
I mentioned that the village does not have that money in our beautification budget. You want to split it, you just voted to split it, then we don't have the money to split it with you.
I'm sorry to hear that, Jeffrey. I guess that's something your board will have to figure out, or you'll have to figure out with Eric. I know he just did budget projections, so you have $3,000 in the budget for decorations, seasonal decorations. All right, do you want to one?
We voted the flow back, the lights and the flow baskets are done.
Okay, I just wonder what happens if the village doesn't pay for half. Would that do flower?
I guess we pick up that to every other tree.
Well, I'm more.
No, I don't know.
Flowers that
Let's,
go out.
we'll cross that bridge when it happens.
Okay.
All right, the fights contract. Yeah. This is something that has come up in front of the board, twice now. It came up to the EDC. I think it was discussed couple times anyway. The marketing committee recommended this company and, we discussed this twice. I think now's the time to decide if we want to go forward with this or not. Everything I've heard about this is the way to go. So is there any comments or you want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a motion to accept the,
I want to make it.
Oh, do you want public comment?
yeah, all right.
Hello, Lauren Fisher, village resident and co-owner of Focus Gallery on Elm Street, and a member of the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce. And I want to read a statement from the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. The Woodstock Chamber of Commerce strongly urges the select board to delay spending $32,000 on the redesign of WoodstockBT.com. We do not oppose the website. In fact, we agree it is an important asset for the greater Woodstock community. However, moving forward with this significant expenditure at this time is premature. Representatives of the town have proposed fundamental changes to the agreement between the town and the chamber that governs the website. These changes include eliminating the chamber's role, as well as the role of 2 at-large members on the editorial board responsible for the content and governance of the website. Limiting the visibility of chamber members to a single directory page on the website, and altering the rights of the chamber and town in connection with the maintenance of the domain name www.woodstockbt.com. As a matter of law, the town cannot make these changes to the agreement without the chamber's consent. Until there is transparency and accountability in place for continued joint management, we feel investing $32,000 in a redesign project is not prudent. We urge the select board to pause this project until a mutually agreeable structure is established that ensures the website will be properly maintained and effectively managed for the benefit of the Woodstock Area Chamber of Commerce and the entire community. Thank you for your attention to this important matter.
So I guess I would say as a matter of law, our MOU expired 6 years ago, so there's nothing that, there's nothing legally binding, with our agreement right now. I think that, what this agreement is separate from the MOU, and I know that Susan and Carrie are planning to meet with the chamber to renegotiate the MOU, but we feel like this contract, which is a year in the making, with members of the chamber included on that marketing board who supported this, is the right move. This is also a move that was suggested and supported by the other marketing contractor, Class 4 marketing, before they left our services as well. At this point, Lauren, I guess I feel like it's kind of ironic, because if the town has taken on the expenses of the baskets, the fireworks, lighting, and all things that the chamber has historically paid for, and yet the chamber still manages up until 2 weeks ago to be 6 months behind on rent to the town, I'm wondering why you feel so comfortable asking us to hold back on something we know we need.
We're not saying it's not needed. We're saying that the problem is going forward, we don't know who's controlling this, who's managing it, what the roles are of the players in it. Well, the members of the chamber who were on the marketing committee had no idea that you were presenting a new contract, as did none of the board members, until you set it down in front of us
This,
during the meeting.
again, this is separate. The Bites contract is separate. Everyone has been aware that the Bites contract has been moving through the EDC for almost a year now. This is not new. And to be honest, I feel like we need to operate because we don't know what the future of the chamber holds. And it seems like you are able to do less and less and fund less and less. Why wouldn't we take care of our business community? To Jeffrey's point, we need to meet the moment. We are facing economic circumstances, unprecedented economic circumstances. And so this I see is entirely separate. You can negotiate the MOU separately with the other members of our board who choose to, but we can vote on this and move forward with this, whether or not we have this URL or another URL.
And I will tell you what it says in the MOU. is that the website URL www.woodstockbt.com is to be owned jointly by the chamber and the town.
Okay,
So,
but your new proposal says chamber will not be a part of that.
That's
No,
not what
no,
the
no, no, no,
proposal
no.
says, and that's, again, that's for you to negotiate with Susan and Carrie.
and that's, nobody has said that. I don't know where that came from.
It's in writing.
Anyway,
It's in writing.
that's fine. If you say it's in writing.
You're the ones who presented it to us. That's a matter of fact.
And I'm telling you, Lauren, other board members are interested in negotiating an MOU with you, but this is separate from that, and we are going to move forward again with
Yes.
work that has been built on for a year with the Economic Development Commission and has had a year for other members to come forward and say whether or not they support this proposal. This is a proposal, like, again, supported not just by the current marketing coordinator, but by our previous marketing coordinators. Everybody agrees this is a good move, and so we're gonna move forward with it.
And we don't know it's gonna cost if we delay it again. Well, everything's going up. So,
Having built over 50 websites and most of them with WordPress, if we desire to do this and what the costs are and what increases there might be, and they're minimal. So I wouldn't be too concerned about
well,
a month from now,
well, 2 months from now. Pretty
price
much.
being
So,
much higher.
okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
I guess I should shut up. Okay.
No, other people want to speak.
Okay.
Cambry? And then Susie and then.
Every Woodstock, I'm a chamber board member and own a business in town as well. I was on the chamber before the EDC and came back the tail end of the pandemic to try to, we all had a hard time, but there's been, I think it's felt, adversarial for a long time now. We all agree that this would be a great thing, the website, and I was on that marketing committee that sat through all the interviews. But we never could get a clear answer on how it was gonna work. And we have a fiduciary responsibility to our members. We represent the business community of Woodstock, but also beyond Woodstock, which is very different from the town or the EDC and how funds should be used and that kind of thing. We all want the same thing. And I've wanted for a long time to somehow figure out how we can work better together, because I think we've looked at lots of different websites. Since we saw I know the MOU and this contract are different. I'm not a legal beagle or anything else, but I understand, I had conversations, after the meeting and everything else about how I think we felt blindsided, and I think you also did, because we thought we were going forward together with all of this, but there's some misconceptions out there about the chamber in general, and we are all getting very excited. We've got new board members, and we have an assistant again to help Beth, and we're working on different ways to raise more revenue, but we have a different fiduciary responsibility than you do. But I think we can benefit each other, and rather than end it on, if we can't figure it out, so that our chamber members maintain their benefits now, to have another URL that's marketing the town, it doesn't make any sense. We can market the town together. And if you look at Woodstock, Illinois, for example, ironically, they have all different organizations on their chamber website. It's not just the chamber, but the chamber members get lots and lots of included in their membership. They get lots of presence on the website. And then the town, there's links all over the place for move here, live here, economic development. I think are hiring an economic development coordinator as well. I think we can help each other and save money at the same time. It's not that we shouldn't do this, but we really need to work at how we're going to work together or if we're gonna work together. I hope we're gonna work together. I've lived here for 35 years and I've never had trouble working with anybody else. So I just would really, we asked for the pause, and I know it's last minute, and I know this means, you know, it's very last minute, I get it, but we had to deal with how we were gonna go forward and, you know, and a lot of people are on vacation, whatever, but anyway, the fireworks, they were
Well,
paid for by the
let's
chamber.
stick with this.
Right, I was just gonna
All right,
say,
no, let's stick with this.
I am, I'm not asking to pay for anything else or whatever else, but the comments about the chamber having no money or the chamber isn't.
Let's stick with the, stick with the contract. This
The bike
fight.
contract is great, I'm just saying, the reason we're asking for this pause at the last minute is because I feel like we really need to regroup. In general, I'm looking forward to meeting with Susan and Carrie. But I think that the comments about we don't pay for the fireworks, we never did. The town pays
Camry,
for it.
Camry,
I know,
okay,
but
I gotta stop you. If you're gonna go off of this, we're not talking about fireworks.
It's okay, I brought it up.
I know.
right, I just,
No,
the
but
response,
you said fireworks 3 times, you only said it once, so I wanna move on. Please, we have a lot on the agenda.
I know, I understand that, and I totally understand that, and this is not my favorite thing to do, you can tell by the color of my face. I don't do this very often, so I really think that there's a way we can all work together and benefit the town and the chamber. And that I would love it if we didn't have such disparaging comments. I hear them all the time, and not just here, but from, I think it's, I don't think it's all accurate. And I think we're working really hard to, you know, reinvigorate all of it to the benefit of the town and the chamber. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments, Chamber. I agree. I think that I want us to work together. I think that we have the same goals. We want our businesses to flourish. I feel like we are in an incredibly tough place right now, and I genuinely am having a hard time figuring out what to do, because I feel like, you know, in terms of your fiduciary responsibility to your members, we have a responsibility to our taxpayers, and the chamber is receiving $35,000 a year out of our budget and continuously receiving more and more funding for things. And I want to know what we can do to have the chamber be strong, but I don't know what else is we can do. I really don't. I want a strong chamber. The disparaging comments about you having money come from the fact, again, like, you've been late on rent to the town. This isn't like unfactual stuff. You know, this isn't, if you have disparaging comments, I would encourage you to investigate them. I hear from businesses. It upsets me that I hear from businesses and you don't hear from businesses. I think that's incredibly inefficient. I can't do anything about it. And so what I'm asking you to is, like, I really need y'all to meet the moment here, because we have so much that we are facing and we need to work together. But I really need y'all to step up. Like, I really do. I would love for the chamber, again, to be a partner to us and to be a collaborator. Like, we want the same things. I just need to know what y'all are gonna do for it, because it's just incredibly frustrating to keep having to collaborate and not have, I think, the partner that we feel like our businesses feel like are meeting them too. So, Susie, did you have something you want to say?
Yes, I have a comment. Susie Stolz, Woodstock. I don't see why you have to have one website for the both. Like, what's the matter with having a new URL, Woodstock, Vermont, and that be the town website, and then you can have your 3 audiences. Visit Woodstock, start your business in Woodstock, raise your family in Woodstock. That's what the website needs to say. And right now it looks like you know, extension of the INS website. And, you know, you just like, you need to have on it, you need to have a family with like strollers, you know, taking up equal amount of real estate on the homepage as the covered bridge, you know, as Sam in her kitchen. You know, we have a lot of really good things going on here. We got a lot of young entrepreneurs, and we just don't, our website doesn't show that at all. And if they have constituents that they need to answer to. I mean, just make a clean break. WoodstockVermont.com is a great URL.
Thanks.
Thank you. Jeffrey, what's next?
Jeffrey Kahn again. I was on the marketing committee that recommended bites. And I think that it's, a lot of work went into it.
Mhm.
I think it's the right decision to support that regardless of what else needs to be worked out. I applaud you for going forward because we need to start moving this forward in a way that faces, some of the concerns I have about the future here. And so I'm all for that. And I'm also all for working cooperatively. But one is not, doesn't have to happen at the same time. Let's get this contract going, get them working, and then also work out with the chamber something that works well. I disagree with Susie about 3 websites, totally wrong. People just look look up Woodstock. They should land on one site. That site should be inclusive of some of the things she's saying. But it should only be one site. Anyway, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you have a comment?
Yes.
Hello, I'm Allison Gaffney. I'm the branch manager at Mascoma Bank. And I just want to introduce myself and let you know that I'm a new part of the chamber. I'm very excited to be a part of it. I love to be out in the community, figure out ways to raise money. So, and we're all excited that the chamber is growing in a wonderful way right now. So in the future, I don't predict us being in the state at all. And I do look forward to figuring out how we can make more money and working well with each other. And I think that should be our main goal, is to work as partners and not against each other. So I look forward to that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If I could just recommend to the chair, I feel like we're getting a little off topic on the topic at hand is the bikes
Bye,
contract.
come on back.
There will be, at the end, you can place other business or something, but I feel like there are 2 conversations happening. One is the bikes contract, which is on agenda. The other is the MOU or the relationship with the chamber, which is not on the agenda.
Right.
And that was unwarned. That was not added to the agenda. I feel like we should
Stick to the contract.
stick to the agenda, and if there's conversation about other things, we should have another meeting, we can warn that meeting and have that conversation then, but I'll just have the recommendations to the chair.
Okay, thank you. Roger, did that?
Roger Logan, Woodstock. I just want to say that I came here expecting to oppose signing this contract now because I think that there are structural issues in the way the current management of content is organized. I do agree completely that I've gone through this RFP and the proposal, and I think this is.
Really?
I know, nerded.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
believe that.
I agree that this is something Woodstock needs in order to be nimble going forward into an unknown economic environment. But it's imperative that when the decision is made to sign this, and if you do it tonight, fine. When the decision is made to sign it, you understand that there has to be a total restructuring of the marketing infrastructure of Woodstock. Because right now, what we have is not marketing the town. It's marketing some individual businesses. And pay to play should not be part of any website, not in this century. It's just, nobody does it that way. So if there need to be business directories and things like that, great. There needs to be that, but it needs to be content that's maintained for the good of the entire community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You nobody online? Beth, did you have?
I just wanted to remind everyone, and I'm sorry it's off topic, but it was brought up from this side, that the $35,000 that the chamber does receive from the town, and it has been that
Okay,
same number, is to keep the Welcome Center open 363 days a year. And staff.
Okay.
That's
Let's-
why we get that money and it is open and it is a town building. Thank you.
We have
Thank you.
some other business owners here. Do you guys have an opinion on this contract? If you don't, it's okay. Okay.
It's fine. No.
Carrie?
mind. So I will entertain a motion
I
to,
just want to know what Carrie thinks.
Kerry?
I really don't have anything to say.
Okay, then I will entertain a motion to approve the Bites contract.
If we approve it, it doesn't mean that we're signing it. It just means we're approving we approve it and we can sign it later after.
Yeah, you're approving the contract
Yeah.
that you usually then recommend I sign it or the chair signs it. Yeah.
So it's not the final step, I guess is what I'm asking.
It is.
It is, yeah.
So this approving it is, we're going forward, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, unless between the approval vote hypothetically right now and the time that it gets signed, the board could warn another meeting and change your opinion, but usually the vote here to approve a contract means the next step is to sign the contract and go
What
forward.
I guess what I'm asking is like, in terms of the timeline, we could also, between now and when the work starts, have other conversations with the chamber if they, I mean, I assume we will to negotiate the other.
Yeah, the contract now is with Bites and set to work
Right.
on the website. It has nothing to do with the MOU with the chamber. Correct. So there's a motion on the floor.
Your motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve the Bites contract.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Marketing contract extension.
Yeah, so as the board knows, just Kirby contract for marketing expires, I believe April 27th. We've been working with her on a new contract. Some of that may depend on MOU with the chamber, and also just kind of trying to figure out the transition from reporting quasi to the EDC to reporting more to the select board or a new committee or the old committee. And until we have those decisions made, we didn't want to get a whole new contract because it may change. So the hope is we extend her current contract for a time period. I think in the past we did 6 months for the housing, similar. And then we continue to work on contract, the job description. We're also working with her on policies and procedures on what can and can't be posted online, and how we want the online format to work. So that all kind of be part of a new contract, actually. But this is just to make sure there's no gap in her working for us now until we have a new contract.
okay. I'll make a motion to extend the contract for 6 months.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The land trust. Conservation purchase and sale agreement.
Yep, so this was sent out to the board. I'm actually gonna recommend this is not a vote tonight, though we actually move to just discussion, but since here now we can talk about it if you want. As you know, student board's been working very closely with the Vermont Land Trust. They are willing and able to put an application in to conserve about 290 or so acres of the Vondel district property and conservation for eternity, basically. And they're applying for a grant of $750,000 that will go to offset the cost of the Vondel, which is 1.6 million, so almost half. So we're working on that end. I feel because this is kind of a newish topic for the public that I don't think the board should vote tonight. I think we should talk about it as a board, as get community feedback now, and probably have one more meeting before you sign any agreements, or not sign an agreement, just because, you know, as we went through the process of talking about purchasing the water system and the Vondel, we talked about potentially conservative, we talked about potentially being wide open for future use. And I feel it's important to get community feedback on how that will look going forward. But I'll leave it at that for the board for questions or comments.
Is there any deadline on approving or signing the grant application?
Sooner than later, I think the application is gonna go in front of the land trust in May. So we probably won't do the next few weeks. My hope is if we have some conversation here, like give the public a week or so. Unfortunately, I do have to warn a few more meetings for select board, with the water system. We'll get to in a few minutes, so we'll have ample time to sign it.
Is there any comments? Okay, now, or,
Could you just explain in a little more detail what exactly we're talking about? I know
Yeah.
it's the Bondell, but.
So it's the Bondell
Bondell
property.
Pub is what we're
Bundle
calling
Pub
it
is what
now.
we're working on now. And it's through the Vermont Land Trust. And so basically for a grant up to $750,000, the town would allow the land trust to put about 290-ish acres of the 353 acres in conservation for eternity, so that land will never be touched, it can't be built on or any of that stuff, and it'll stay in conservation forever, for that price.
So I'm just gonna make a brief comment. I mean, I've heard this before and I know the details are moving around all the time. It's a no-brainer. Let's do it fast before somebody takes the money away.
thank you.
Here, here.
Are there any other? Yes. Nothing online. All right,
Okay, so
Soul
hopefully.
City.
And just so everybody's clear, sorry if I missed this. The land and conservation can still be used for recreation and enjoyment and mountain bike trails and all of those things. So we're saying that out loud. Yes, right?
Thank you, Carrie.
okay,
And they also, they're going with Wamba and everything else, so it would not impact that stuff. Right.
Yeah,
okay,
its use has remained unchanged.
okay. The Woodstock Farmers Market at FEMA buyout.
Yep, so I want to just preface this by saying this vote or approval tonight does not mean the Woodstock Farmers Market is going to be the current location. But the application to apply for this FEMA buyout is the end of April. So what they want to do, according to my conversation with Patrick, is get approval to be in the cycle, apply for it, and then decide down the road what's the best option for the farmers market. So this keeps options open. By not doing this, they kind of lose the option of having a buyout. So this kind of just allows them to continue to have two options going forward. And the hope is, from my understanding, is to, you know, if they do a few buyout, to just try to sing with stuff.
Is there a motion to approve the Woodstock Farmers Market FEMA buyout? Is
I'll make the motion.
there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. The A&R signature sheet.
Yep, so this is just, as we get closer to the, closing of the water system, we have to apply for a few permits through the state. And we just need a signature for those permits. I'd recommend the chair of the select board, but it can be anyone that select board designates. And I just need someone to sign the paperwork for me, so we can submit it and have the permits change over from, the Aqueduct vote.
Okay, I can sign those. Do you have them now or?
Well, at first like a vote from the board,
Okay,
Ruben, and then, you can come in. I have you in tomorrow
Yeah.
morning anyway, so.
all right, is there a motion to approve the chair of the select board to sign the A&R signature sheet?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
That's it for votes?
Yes, the hard work done for you all.
You can have it here.
Not yet, soon. Okay, Wendy Spector is gonna present the village conservative presentation.
I just want to.
Correct, I need to mute my.
Yeah,
Yeah, all sound. So microphone and audio. And I made you a code, so you should be able to share your screen.
Working there, off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there an outlet up there? I'm gonna have to rely on my battery.
There's no outlet, there's outlet,
Okay, we'll take a risk. Okay, and you want me up here?
That would be great.
Yeah.
Wendy.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, just introduce yourself,
Yeah.
even though everyone knows who you
Just
are.
close all these things.
just for kind of a preface, this group sent in front of the village trustees, I think 2 months ago, similar presentation. And we couldn't make it last month, the meetings with the air. No, are you sharing your screen?
I'm trying to. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Try it again.
Is that working?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great. So thank you for having us today. As Eric just mentioned, we came before the trustees a few months ago. And the purpose is for us to be officially on the record as having presented this to you. This is the first step in a way for us to start to present to the public if we get your approval to go ahead. We feel that we've done a lot of work that I'm going to share with you, and we don't want to move ahead without your blessing, if you will. So,
Roger, can you get one of the lights?
okay. So we have 3 basic goals for tonight. One is to gain your support for the mission and vision of the Woodstock Village Conservancy and support for our first major project, which is to restore the village green and improve the safety of the village corridor. And then hopefully agree on some next steps. So we'll have 4 sections to our presentation: who we are, our work to date, and what we need from you, and then an opportunity to have a conversation. There's a lot of information, and I'm going to go through it quickly. I sent you a packet. Did you all have a chance to look at it? Great. So I'll make this fast, assuming that you've already absorbed some of this. So first, I want to talk about the blue sky vision of who we are. Because we have great ambitions, but we also understand that we may not get everything we want done. But I think it's nice to see what we're aiming for. So we have this vision that outdoor spaces are economic drivers for community engagement and tourism, and the condition of these communicate competency, commitment, and values. So if we think 20 years down the road, 30 years down the road, we imagine intentionally designed, sustainable, and well-kept public spaces connected by safe and accessible pathways that residents will appreciate and support, and visitors will explore and enjoy. Are you handling the admissions to the room?
Yes.
Okay, that's popping up on my screen. So simply put, our mission is to enhance and maintain public spaces and connectors in the village of Woodstock. So the challenge is that we're the birthplace of the environmental and conservation movement. We have an active community and we're a popular tourist destination, but we're not as safe and as accessible or as responsible as we could to the environment. Our resources are insufficient to adequately maintain or improve our public assets. The spaces lack or have lost intentionality. Pedestrians and cyclists don't feel safe. There are insufficient places in the village for pedestrians to sit and rest. And downtown parking is inefficiently allocated. So the solution is us, we'd like to think. We're a team of residents committed to supporting the municipality with intentional design, environmental sustainability, accessibility, and maintenance of these public spaces and pathways at minimal additional cost to the municipal budget.
So we're following the Green Streets Framework, which is developed by the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program. And this reflects our sustainability and accessibility priorities. This is to protect our environmental resources through community engagement, to contribute to rising property values and tax revenues, and to encourage further public and private investments in beautification and stewardship. So there's basically these three pillars: green placemaking, green mobility, and green stormwater infrastructure. So placemaking talks about the planning, designing, and management of our spaces, leveraging our natural resources. They emphasize human health, economic vitality, and the quality of life. And they encourage the appreciation and culture of our place and public investment in maintenance enhancement. Mobility is for safe access for everyone, all ages, all physical abilities, and it includes amenities that encourage people to come to the town. Lower vehicle speeds reduce collision and increase the number of cyclists willing to use the streets. And this all improves local businesses and security by having more people around. Stormwater infrastructure uses plants and soils to intercept, hold, and slow down stormwater closer to the source. So instead of water going right into the sewer and then having it need to be cleaned, it is cleaned naturally. So this also enhances the urban landscape with natural beauty and improves ecosystem health. And to some extent, it also mitigates the dangers of flooding. So placemaking opportunities for us in the village are shown with these little red circles and listed here on the side. And we're sort of thinking of everything from East End Park through Tribble Park, the American Legion Little Parklet, Trattoria Pie Parklet, Tipo's Landing, the Green, the Little Green, Gore, Vale Field, History Center, Faulkner Park Cemeteries. All those green places, as well as sidewalks, footpaths, bike lanes. Parking is kind of a pathway. We're calling Mechanic Square a potential destination. Traffic wayfinding, and then also sort of not literal but figurative connections as well. So programming, culture. So the scope of activity that we imagine include collaborating, funding, and implementation. So we would work with the municipality and other stakeholders to develop priorities, lead design and planning, and leverage resources. We would set and manage the budgets and seek funding. As I said, we would first go to other places than the town. So grants, philanthropy, and we might put on the warrant a petition for additional funds, but it would not be a line item of the town. And then we would oversee the research and contracts, coordinate the activities, and report regularly. So our work to date. So we joined the Woodstock Community Trust portfolio of projects last summer. Are you all familiar with the trust and how it works? So we formed a leadership team in the fall, and these members represent newcomers as well as people who've been here for a while. And I just want to introduce you to the people who are here, if that's okay. We have Laura Dias, who is a new resident, and she's very interested in programming. Michael Green should be online, and he'll be talking later about, hopefully if he's online, he'll be talking later about part of our goals. Roger Logan, you all know. Stuart Matthews is online. Betty Ann McGuire is on vacation. Jack is here. Me, and then Susie Stoltz. And we all have different areas of interest, and the trust has really given each of us a home in a way to pursue these interests, these different ways of improving our community. So in terms of collaboration, we've been working since the summer to do community outreach, having dozens of meetings with various stakeholders. We've established key partnerships and have been actively exploring project opportunities. We've secured some seed funding to help us get some of this work done, and we're continuously researching additional funding. We've researched models of park design and developed some design concepts so we have a sense of how much we think our project is going to cost. And we've done regular reports back to municipality and partners. So these are the people or the entities that we think of as our principal stakeholders. The municipality includes the town and the village, the schools, public safety, DPW, and then the regional commission. The nonprofits here are the ones who have physical spaces already. So the rec center oversees Vale Field, Friends of Faulkner Park, History Center has their little park, Friends of East End Park and St. James for the Little Green. And we've started talking to residents and local businesses. Secondary stakeholders include users like Woodstock, the Chamber, Pentangle Arts. And then the adjacent nonprofits are those who are outside the village but have an interest in what we're doing. The National Park, for example, is very excited about working with us to make the connections between our Little Greens and their park. The Biking Association is very interested in what we're doing with the connectors. Change the World Kids is really excited about some of the programming that we have in mind. And then the Rotary Club, Mascoma Bank, and the Senior Center have all been informed as well. So we've identified our major project, which is to restore and improve the green and improve the safety of the village corridor for everyone. And it started with just the traffic around the green, but we realized that you can't really do one section of traffic. So we make it great for bicyclists around the green, they still have nowhere to go. So we're kind of addressing the entire corridor. So restoring and improving the green, why this? It's an iconic destination in the village, but it lacks intentionality. The original park design has been lost through the years. The furnishings lack cohesion and aren't maintained, and the usage of the space is uneven. It's not sustainably managed. Its trees, lawns, and paths have suffered from insufficient maintenance, and the equipment used is noisy and polluting. It's not as accessible as it should be. Its connection to the other green spaces is under leveraged, and it's unsafe for cars, bikes, and pedestrians. So here's a brief history and some great photos. So we got the land in 1788, and then it was enlarged to its present dimensions. And then about 200 years ago, we're going to celebrate that somehow. The land was evened out, grass was sown, and trees were planted in a cathedral-like pattern. And the fence was granite and wood, or maybe it was a wood slat fence. The iron fence that we know today was installed in the 1870s. And then in the 1930s, a hurricane damaged many of the trees, which was the picture in the lower left. And in the 70s, Dutch elm came and destroyed many others, and then under maintenance, destroyed more trees. And then in 2022, Route 4 was restriped to 2 lanes around the green, the only section of Route 4 between White River Junction and Killington, at least, if not Rutland, where it's 2 lanes. So today, the lack of trees unintentionally gives a space for great events, but the condition is still poor and needs attention. So replanting has been undermined by insufficient watering, lack of aeration and heavy usage has led to compaction and cooling. Thanks to the Rotary, the iron fence was painted in 2022, but it remains rusted, contains lead paint, and has become untrue. And then, as I said earlier, the furnishings lack intentional design and are poorly maintained. So we've been talking to all of our stakeholders about which elements of the green they like and which ideas, new ideas they would like to see, what problems need to be resolved, and whether they're interested in supporting our work. And we've been very pleased that most people seem to be very supportive of this idea. We know that we're going to come up against naysayers and bumps along the way, but we feel that whatever we do will be an improvement. Mike, are you there? Do you want to jump in here? If you're there, you're muted.
Sorry, yeah,
Okay.
I was following along in my own PowerPoint, so I had to go back to this. Hi, everyone.
So
You guys
let me
can
just-
hear me, right?
Yeah. So
Cool.
Mike Green is a relative newcomer, has a lot of experience with bike infrastructure in Massachusetts. And he was very excited to get on board and spearhead this portion. So I'm going to let him talk about it. Michael, I'll advance the slides. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Wendy, and thanks, everybody. How's everyone doing this evening? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Very good.
Sorry you guys can't see me. It's really an unflattering angle for anyone, I think, to like look at a PowerPoint on their cell phone, and you guys would look right at my nostrils, I think. So thanks, Wendy. I think you said it really well in the beginning when you were talking about, reimagining the safety and coming and going from the green. and putting things like bike lanes and more better striped crosswalks. Why stop there? Like there's a lot of other things that deserve attention and intention in their design. I'm not sure if everyone saw this, but Wamba and VIMBA, the Vermont Mountain Bike Association, recently came out with an economic report of how small businesses and local economies thrive from bicyclist tourism and bicyclist, excuse me, activity. And one of the things that we saw is that like actually we have like tens of thousands of cyclists in that study they were talking about that came to Woodstock. And it's funny to think that all of those people, we know where they park, right? They park in the East End Park. They park over in Knox Meadow, and they park in the Aqueduct. And yet we have no way to bring those people into the downtown corridor to visit and like, be at the small businesses. Route 4 is just extremely dangerous for cyclists to be on. We also have a high school where most of the kids who live in our village can't make it from their home to their school on their bike, or not very easily. There's some either monster hills to make it up and down, or they're actually risking themselves on 4. And so I think it's like a great opportunity if we're going to think about cycling infrastructure and investing in around the village or around the green. What are the other key economic points or destinations and key valuable places where we could at least, if we have the intention to design it in one place, design it in a place that in a way that includes all of that as well. Thank you, Wendy, for going through these slides. So yeah, there's everything from pedestrian safety and the opportunities to invest in that. If you go through this, Wendy, to the last, there we go, perfect. So cyclist safety that I was talking about, and also like just generally being driver safety. If people are like dictated to where they need to be on the road or on the crosswalk, looking for cyclists, looking for pedestrians, you're also safer in the car. We don't need to tell anybody else that. We all drive around the village and have to see this, or experience it every single day. So yeah, I know I'm sorry that I'm doing this virtually. I would have loved to have been there in person. I'm on vacation with my family. But one of the things that is like a unique opportunity, I realize when we think about pedestrian safety and cyclist safety on Route 4, everyone tells me it's VTrans, like that's their road, they manage it, they think about it. They have grants to help municipalities think about how to plan and paint and stripe and structure lanes in a smart way. So we should look into that opportunity as a town, and I think we are willing to help Wendy and I and others in going through that process. When I'll be back in town on Monday. I'm happy to talk with others about like what's needed for that, or answer any questions at the end of this presentation on it. But with that, Wendy, I'll hand it back over to you for what we need and what we can provide.
Thank you, Mike. If you don't know Mike, I'm sorry he wasn't up there, but he'll introduce himself at some point. Okay, so now we're at the point of what we need from you. So we recognize that the town and the village has no money, and even though you've had ideas of what you've wanted to do, this has always been an issue. So what we propose is that we will seek grants and private donations to get some of this work done. We know that the elected officials and staff have no time. So we're proposing to mobilize volunteers to do the work. We know that change is hard. So we propose to gather the facts to educate the public about the problems and seek their input to identify improvements. So what we are looking for from you is just your support. We don't want to burden you. We want to make life easier for you. So we propose to explore restoration, meaning intentional designs and financing the restoration of the green. And we ask you to participate to whatever you wish in this process. We want to work with you, TRORC, VTrans, and the other entities to implement audits of the traffic patterns and needs around the green and along the village corridor. And we may need your signature on some of these requests. We propose to analyze data and propose plans of action. And we invite you to review and provide feedback as needed. And then we to execute and report regularly back to you, and just hope that you'll stay abreast of the progress. So the next steps for us, if you are all supportive of what we're trying to do, is that we would try to assess the funding appetite out there. Are there donors who are willing to support this project? Are there grants that we can find? And then mobilize the manpower to implement our plans, which is to explore and pursue the steps to restore and improve the green, and undertake these V-Trans audits that Mike mentioned, to assess the current situation of vehicular, bike, and pedestrian infrastructure along the border. We've already met with the trustees who are in charge of the maintenance of the green, and they like the idea that we would come in and help them improve and maintain it. So we would want to work with the town manager to draft an MOU detailing the process and the responsibilities to do that. So again, these are the goals. We're looking for your support for our mission and our vision, and for our first major project, which has these two parts, the green and then the corridor, and then agreement on the next steps, which is this last slide. And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Right? Well,
No.
No. Go ahead,
No,
Collins.
I'm in full support. This sounds great.
Yeah, this is great, Wendy. Thank you for putting this
Thank you, Jen.
together. I think this is beneficial, and the only other thing I was gonna say is that you probably already looked there, but I know the LCT has a whole directory of grants as
Yes.
well. And I said the other day, that's like an infrastructure animation project.
Yes.
It's like there's money for everything.
Yes.
If kids draw it, we could get $8,000.
Yes, exactly. Let me just say that it's been so interesting as we've gone around talking to the various stakeholders. Sometimes I would go into a meeting and think it's just a courtesy call,
Yeah.
and find that there's a lot of synergy, like when we talk to the high school or when we talk to the senior center. I mean, they're right across from the high school.
Yep.
They would love to be able to have their
Be more
seniors
connected.
walk or electric bike down a safe pathway into the village. They would like to have an area that they could walk around in the village. So we're really excited by all of the support that we're getting from all these various entities. And I wanted to make sure that we got your support, even if it's not a vote per se, because it's important that we be able to go to potential donors, for example, and say that we are on the right path. And this is not just money that I'm collecting. Like this has happened to me before, where I've collected a lot of money and then the project has fallen apart. So we don't want that to happen. We want them to have full faith that you know the select board at least understands where we're going. And then if we can raise the money, we'll come back to you with a proposal. But right now, we just want to make sure that we have our story straight. So the only thing that I think eventually we'll want to do is to work with Eric on an MOU that would then come back for some kind of approval.
I think Mike has a hand raised.
Yeah.
Thanks guys for the time. Sorry, yeah, and I'll try not to use any more of y'all's time. One of the things, just kind of like as a matter of like timeliness and a total noob here on process, the Vermont Transportation V-Trans has their pedestrian and cycling safety grant at some point this month. The like application and language for it goes live, and it's due in June. Who would be the best person to just kind of like work with and follow through? Because I do know that that's going to require some level of sign off and support from the town.
Yeah, so I think work with Eric's office for that, and then if we
Okay.
need to figure out how to put it in the upcoming agendas to make sure we meet the deadlines. Is that
Cool.
state
I
money?
appreciate it.
That's state money,
It's
'cause
actually, I believe it's federal money that was given to the state, but it's already been allocated into the state's coffers. So I think it's important that we, while it is a yearly program, I don't think that we should hold out in applying for it in a future year, because I don't know that that federal funding will be available to
Yeah.
the state.
That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
I guess I'll just.
Thank you.
This is great, Wendy. Thank you for putting this together and for the broader group for showing up. I'm really excited to see this coalition together. I think this is a lot of work that we've probably thought about piecemeal, but not all put together. And so it's really encouraging to see a group kind of take it on holistically and be proactive. And I know that if Susan were here, she would say, we'll find a way to maybe figure out how to incorporate it on the agenda so it ties into our goals and objectives that we're setting for the year. But yeah, this is great.
Great.
Great,
Terrific.
thank you.
All right, so we're gonna go full speed ahead, start talking to potential donors and assess the appetite and how much we might be able to raise. And, yeah, and then you might get a little glimpse of the kind of design that we're looking at as our budgeting tool. It's not the plan. It's just the tool that we're using to come up with a target budget. And then Eric, if we can, draft up an MOU for you to look over, that would be our next step.
I think that's great. The only other thing I'll say is I think it sounds like you've talked to a lot of stakeholders. I think feedback early and often continuously for people is important, especially, I know it's called the Village Conservancy, but I think it's really important to talk to people who live outside the village also and make sure we're asking them how they would want to use the space as well and what will bring them to the village.
Totally.
Thanks, Wendy.
Yeah.
I just flag two things for the board. One is, it's probably too far away, but do you have a timeline of like how long the work will take? So if you're redoing the green, like what is going to be the impact to the green in that area? A lot of work's going on. Do you have any sense of?
Yeah, so I mean, if everything worked exactly the way I wanted it to, we would hear from lots of really enthusiastic donors that they would be willing to ante up the money that we want to do the entire plan. We think of the phasing as being sort of 3 stages. One would be the improvement of the interior space inside the fence, so to speak. So infrastructure of the green, like in maybe getting irrigation in, restoration of the sod and the ground, a tree planting plan that we would do in conjunction with the high school, for example. And then feedback with the town back and forth. So it could be like next spring, next fall, the work could be done. We've been told that it could be done within 1 season.
Would the green have to be closed at that time or?
Right,
Okay.
so it would be,
Figure out.
right, it would be just that 1 season though. And then the fence would be another conversation, that's an expense and a whole design discussion. And then the outside of the fence would be the 3rd phase, because that involves speed trans in this whole village corridor. So all of our designs include a 5-foot perimeter sidewalk outside the fence, and that encroaches on the roadway, which we think is way wide enough to accommodate a 5-foot sidewalk, and that achieves a lot of benefits in terms of safety and navigability. Cars can open their doors, they're parked there, but that has to be part and parcel with the whole corridor plan, whatever that is. So that could take a decade, but inside the fence, we could restore the green very quickly.
And do you mean a season like spring through fall, or like
Well,
like season like spring or summer or fall?
I think it might be spring and early summer.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'd want to get irrigation, we'd want to have a planting program, we want to have, heavy machinery come in, but it's only an acre, so it shouldn't take that long.
You'd want to do the fence, too, I think, at the same time.
Well, the fence is that could delay things. We have to discuss the fence as a separate thing, because it's a cost
Right.
that's on top of all the work that's interior. And then we want to have a, back and forth about design, and we want to understand the installation and creation of the fence, as well as long-term maintenance of it. So I think that there are materials that are easier to maintain, but maybe they would cost more to put in, or if we want to keep the fence that we have, how much of it do we want to actually rebuild? And that's really expensive because it's custom. So those are all things that we have to look at. Yeah.
And just I think I want to flag, I think more for the board than for Wendy, but thank you for everything you talked about.
Thank you.
I would have just, I don't know if concern is the right word, but just the board to think about a petition from this organization on the warning when it's going towards like town and village property, and whether it'd be better served having money in the budget, if there'd be any money budgeted for rather than a petition, just something, I know we're trying to get away from petitions
Yeah,
and
you're
tax
right.
barriers and that stuff, so
That makes
just
sense.
something to think about as we go forward this process of how best to handle that.
I would just say, very excited about this project. I think it sounds great. I would encourage the work to be done in spring rather than fall. That's my 2 cents.
Planting does better in the spring.
Yeah,
Okay. Thank you, Wendy.
thank you. Wendy.
Goals, tasks for economic development position.
Yeah, so the board's been talking about this position for a while now. Internally, we've been working on a job description. But I think something we haven't really talked about, or the board hasn't really talked about to give us a little more direction is, you know, what do you want this person to actually be working on? What are their goals? Because that's going to kind of go into the person we're looking for, right? If we want someone who is going to be here to work with the current businesses in tourism, that's one skill set. If you want someone to come in and help with the financing for development, and that's a different skill set. If you want someone who can kind of do a hybrid of both, like what is the goal of this position, you know, 5 years from now, and that will kind of help us shape the description so we'll know we're looking for the right person in this role. So I don't know if the board has any strong feelings on that. And once we have some more feedback, we can distribute the job description among the boards for feedback. Then we'll probably take it to EDC, some of the EDC, and kind of get their feedback as well. But I think as we work on the job description, we kind of came up with, you know, do you want to go left here? Do you want to go right? Do you want to go middle? And internally we have some thoughts, but I want to get the select board's feelings as well.
I think it's gonna be aligned with our goals and objectives and those are wide ranging.
Well, I think we've discussed, and maybe we all agree, like, it would be good for us to talk about it, I guess. We discussed at the last meeting that this person would work to grow the grand list. So bring more housing development to Woodstock. I will say housing and, you know, commercial development, since both are on our goals and objectives. I care more about that. I think at this point, I think we all know what we need. We've been talking about adding housing for a long time. That's obviously my bias. Everyone here knows that I'm gonna talk about that. Greg?
Harry?
Yeah, obviously we gotta get the other ducks in a row going, which we started, but, yeah.
Yeah.
Carrie, do you have anything to add?
No.
I think Roger has a comment.
Come on up, Roger.
A few years ago, when I was working in not-for-profit, the big new concept was a director of growth. And I think that's, from my perspective, that's kind of what we're looking for. We're not looking for somebody, I mean, this is my perspective, obviously, I can't speak for anybody else. We're not looking for somebody who knows how to bring businesses here. We're not looking for somebody who knows how to bring housing here. We're looking for a well-rounded dilettante who knows how to work with the people who are experts in those areas and is really good at organizing them and is a good project leader and team leader. So I would say we're talking about growing the grand list, which means a whole bunch of different parts have to fit together, and then you have to have the business to serve that growing grand list. You have to make sure we maybe build a school someday. So from my perspective, and I know this is a hard lift when you're talking about a small town in Vermont that doesn't have a huge budget, but I think you're looking for somebody who's really, really a quick study and is really good at working with a large array of constituency, keeping the eye on the goal that it's to grow, to responsibly and sensitively grow this community. Thanks.
John is hand his hand up.
Go ahead, John.
Hi, sorry. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
My camera might not be, well, the camera might not be working. Sorry about that. Um, I, I think that while you don't have to decide, it sounds like you won't decide that tonight. I think that the four priorities that you've set, housing/development, efficient, effective government, affordability, and climate resiliency, really don't define what you need other than housing, which I think Laura has suggested is her priority, and I would agree with that. I think that that's probably the number one priority in terms of economic development. But in terms of answering Eric's question about what specific skills and so forth would you need, I think you need to go further to define what these four things mean. As an example, Eric, I don't see where any of these, I don't see how the things you mentioned, like working with local businesses, I don't see where that fits under the four priorities. I don't think you meant to exclude that. But if I were applying for the job, I would assume that that had nothing to do with the job. Um, marketing Woodstock, I would assume that that has nothing to do with the job. So I just encourage you over time, and perhaps working with the person that you hire, if not sooner than that, is to try to create is to try to bring some clarity to that, because the things that you've talked about doing, which I agree with, and the things that you've already allocated money towards don't fit under these four goals as I read them. And you could mean something else, and maybe other people will read them differently. But I feel that that disconnect is going to, at best, slow us down once we have this person on board, and at worst will lead to a decision by the select board to do things differently than that person is recommending, because the direction wasn't clear to what you really want, whatever that is. So again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record. I'll stop making this point tonight. But I mean, going forward, I won't make it again. But I just really encourage you to do that, because it's not clear. These are, I think, good priorities, but to make them work, they need to be better defined. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Jeff?
Hi, Jeffrey Kahn. Yeah, I'm concerned with the exact same thing John just said. And I agree with what he said. And having sat as a village trustee with the select board, when we came up with those four objectives, we also had side ones that were below that. But the four that we had at the time we did that, for instance, the EDC was in existence, and it was running marketing for Woodstock and for the business community and the economic vitality, and that existed. Now it doesn't exist. And I would have said something differently at the time that we came up with those four objectives, maybe to have added one that at that time I thought it didn't matter because the EDC was taking care of it under your guidance, but taking care of it, and now that doesn't really exist in the same way. So I'm a little concerned with how one person can do everything that you're thinking that they could do, including, because I think it's important that it include the marketing of Woodstock and tourism and that side, what's so important to the vitality economically of Woodstock. And I find that missing in the four objectives. Whereas climate resiliency, I would put this ahead of that. Not that climate resiliency isn't important, but in terms of what this person needs to be concerned with, I would put this ahead of that. And so I wouldn't limit it to those four objectives. I think some work needs to be done there. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, we have joint meetings coming up anyway, right?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say for clarification, we have Jess as our marketing coordinator, whose role is just what you said, Jeffrey, is to market Woodstock. I mean, I think this person is marketing Woodstock in a way. I think maybe the goals and objectives are getting confusing for people in that, I think we can absolutely, this person should have a very, very, very specific job description. As you know, this was our first year setting goals and objectives, and I hope this year when we set objectives, because we've already set the long-term goals, we can be more specific about how they are set. But I think we need to examine, one of those is effective and efficient government and how we effectively do the things we're doing. And one of the things in our conversation that's come up is that we would like to have someone who's devoted full-time to organizing and recruiting more development to Woodstock to grow the grand list. And that, in fact, does involve marketing. This person will have to work with Jess, will have to work with the town in some capacity. We'll hopefully work with the chamber. But there's a lot of marketing work to be done, and it's going to take many hands. And so I think that, to Tambri's point, we need to, work together on that. Yeah. Do we want to set a date for having this description finalized?
I think I'm seeing the hand go up. Yeah, as he comes up. Sorry, I didn't mean to do that here.
It's okay.
I would ask if maybe the board could delegate one board member or two to work internally with our staff to kind of speed this up. So if there's a board, but maybe after public comments over, we can make a delegation so we can kind of make this quicker.
Okay.
Good evening, Fire.
Hey, Claire.
I'm late to the ballgame.
That's okay.
I really appreciate everything that everyone did. And more than anything else, I appreciate all of the citizen groups that are involved in this community. I mean, when I first started coming here, one of my points was people to be involved. When I read about the dissolving of the EDC essentially and creating one position, and I'm not going to say I'm a big supporter of the EDC. I'm not going to say it. I'm not a big supporter of the EDC. But when I saw that, it's like, my thoughts were, well, one, we had a vote on that. Two, I know that we've had discussions at town meetings and before about, there are some people that would say, let's take all that money and put it in the general fund and then let the boards decide how to do it. And there's a large segment of the community that would say that. There's another segment of the community that says, this community lives on businesses, which are important.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read this, these are my first concerns. One, community involvement is the number one thing. If we lose community involvement, we've lost the community. I don't care about businesses. If we lose community involvement, and I don't care if they fill up. I mean, I used to remember meetings that when you filled up like tonight, you go, oh, we're full tonight. Rather than, oh, we like to have one person here or no people here, but you really don't.
No, we like to have people here.
But you like to have people. So my first thing is please keep in mind the loss of community involvement, the loss of the passion of the different groups. If you have one person doing it, I don't know how one person's going to do it. I really don't. And I don't know what metrics you're using to evaluate not only the program, but the position. So I would encourage that if you do something, you do it for 1 year. Because no matter what you do, you're taking that, let me just throw a number out there, $100,000 that was EDC money that you guys approved one way or the other to be able to use for sewer, water, plants, parade, anything else. You're taking 100,000 out of that. That's going to be for a position. That's the me thinking of it. The other thing is if you're doing away with it, you're doing it again outside of town meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, can I clarify? We haven't dissolved the EDC, and I feel like maybe that's the confusion, is that.
It sounds like that's what the intent is.
So
no.
the EDC was
The idea is that this
reported to
position,
the board, and the board, it wasn't a town vote, it was the select board that appointed the EDC.
the EDC doesn't have a charter. We only have votes about the creation of the fund and the purpose of the fund. Those are the only things we've had votes on. We haven't, but to your point, the idea about the dissolution of the EDC is premature. We've said, and we said in the past 2 meetings, that this role will determine how the EDC gets leveraged, because to your point, there's a lot of historical knowledge and community involvement in that group. And so we want to leave it up to that person to determine how they leverage that group. It's a group that's done immense work for this community and for this board as advisory. And so we want that person to be able to decide. how to use that group. The other thing I'll tell you, Byron, is that, you know, the reason that that I am bullish on housing, and in particular for this position, is because we want to generate more and have more taxpayers to be able to absorb the costs you're talking about, right? We want to actually grow this fund, and hopefully this person understands that as their assignment, because the fund is funding their position. So if there's no revenue coming into that fund, there's no point in having this person. If their job is to create 5, 10, 25, 30 more housing units, those are more people that can, one, support and patronize our businesses, but two, can absorb the upcoming infrastructure costs we know we need.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I really do believe in the four bases you said. I think they sometimes are in conflict with one of the others. And that's gonna be, if you do a one position, that's gonna be a no-win. Really a no-win. The other thing that I think you're gonna run into, maybe I'm wrong on this, is, for instance, the chamber said, chamber comes to you for money. They always do. You know, everyone always comes to you for money. But the chamber is getting donations. Another group is getting donations for the green.
Mhm.
If you do it with one person, are these groups going to be so inclined to try to get $9,000 to pay for this? Or try to get money to resolve the green, you know, to improve upon the green? Or are they gonna say, no, this is a one position, and that's for them to do? I mean, so if you have a one person, they have to understand, how do you keep this all going?
The job description is a work. in
That's
progress.
what I mean. Yeah, I just wanted to say that for a thought.
Yeah, no, it's still a work in progress. We haven't,
Because you start losing community
Right.
involvement,
no,
you start losing all of those.
right, and that will have community involvement.
I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I love the idea for metrics too, Byron. I think that's great.
there's gotta be some way.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, I've seen all groups, chamber and the community, everyone else say, oh, let's throw money at this, and this is gonna solve it. But there's no way to determine, did that help?
Mhm.
You know, I know of different metrics you can look at to
Yep.
say, oh,
Yeah.
did it help? But I never once heard it here,
Mhm.
talked about.
Yeah.
Never
Well,
once.
We build 30 more houses, that's the metric for it.
Don't get me involved in
Okay.
housing, because that is my passion. And the definition of affordable housing is different. What's affordable here?
Yeah.
We don't have economic diversity in this community.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Byron.
So if there's no more public comment, would the board be okay delegating one board member to work at the office and finish the description as soon as possible?
I can do it. I'm volunteering
Thank you.
as tribute,
What's that?
unless Greg wanted to fight me for it.
You're the woman for it.
What was that?
She's the woman for it. Person.
Thank you.
Person.
Thank you,
Okay.
Greg.
Blundell rules, policies and signs.
Yeah, so this is kind of, I did not get into the weeds unless I wanted to, but, you know, just talking about what signage we want out of Mondale, you know, now that we're gonna own it, unfortunately, the risk also comes with owning property. So, you know, things like, you know, you occupy this property at your own risk, you know, how we want to potentially enforce like there's leash laws, stuff like that, just making sure we are protecting ourselves and also how we want the Blundell to be used by residents in the best possible way.
Do we need an attorney to help us with this?
I mean, I think if we're okay with putting a few signs up, you know, I can make that quick phone call, that'll be fine, but like, I think longer term, we wanna, you know. Do we wanna not have people there past dusk or, you know, like, sounds like that, I'm just. Throwing it out there, or like, you know, if people can park in that parking lot.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be helpful is to know like current policies are, if there are any that exist and what signs exist. Greg probably knows about where the trail signs are.
Yeah, but let's not confuse it
Okay,
too much.
yeah,
I
I think it's
mean,
simple.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just put a no trespassing sign up
Yeah.
there and be done with it.
Get out of
Get a
here.
gate with the key on, I know you have.
No, if there's not a problem now.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we have to gear up for it, but let's not overthink it of having
Yeah.
signs all over the place. maybe it's, you know,
I
again,
mean,
work in
obvious-
progress to see
Yeah.
what happens with it.
We definitely care about protecting our liability, which I'm hearing.
Yeah.
So are there things specifically that you're concerned about? Like for
And is there signage right now? Like, what is the signage now?
I haven't been up there since the fall, so I think.
Well, Greg owes me a snowmobile ride, so we can go do an
We
audit.
go tonight.
But it would probably would not.
Okay,
But you know, I just had a resident reach out to me about a certain issue that they've had while they've been up there that could be a liability to town, so I wanna make sure we have something in place to. And it could just be you use this property.
yeah, we should figure it out before like hunting season, for sure.
Yeah.
Right?
That's how we put this like.
I'm just, I'm just saying like maybe that's a hard deadline, but I also think we should have signage to encourage people to go out there now that we own it. We've got a lot of fun things we can do up there. And I know that Wamba put together a beautiful trail maps guide. And maybe we should have our own trail guide that we can advertise also. Roger's got some thoughts.
Yeah, while you're talking about this, most places I've been where there's mixed use trails, there's a very explicit code of conduct
Okay,
that says, you know, pedestrians have the right of way, but, you know, be nice, move, you know, there's ways to
Yeah.
do it so that, because a mixed use trail can be dangerous if people are bombing around, which has not been my experience up there, but it can happen.
It's all working now, is it not? So far?
I mean, I guess the complaints wouldn't come to us though if it wasn't, which
True.
is the concern, I think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I don't think it's necessarily something that you have to have, but I just think it's good to have a kind of a code, you know, just a sign, because
Yeah,
this is a shared use trail. There are dogs, make sure your dog is on the leash or under voice, you know, whatever you know, when you walk into Central Park in New York, there's a billboard this big that tells you all.
That's what I wouldn't want myself.
Nobody ever reads it.
yeah.
But looking at neon.
Yeah.
Right.
Blinking on and off would be perfect.
Well,
Well, I think
do we want to do an audit of what's up there? I'm more than happy to volunteer to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that tomorrow anyway, so I can.
Oh, you're gonna, okay, you're gonna do it.
Yeah,
Great.
I still think we should get feedback from the training, just
Yeah.
what
Oh,
kind
to
of,
cover our
Yeah,
bases, yeah.
what, yeah. Okay,
And also, I think maybe consult with Wamba about signs that would be helpful for safety also, because they've been the main users of those trails. What's the limit?
Yeah, they've done it very responsibly, so
Seemingly.
they know the issues that have come up.
Yeah, but I definitely, I'd hate for someone to get accidentally shot on their property.
nobody will be good.
Right, Craig?
As opposed to perpendicular.
I mean.
Well, moving on, the
Oh, thank you right now.
So what you got?
whack update.
Yeah, so a few things. One, as I referenced before, we want to probably set. So there's a few things. One is we'll probably set a meeting maybe on the 28th or the 29th of April. 28th ideally. What that would be is the board kind of just reviewing the closing documents and maybe passing some motions to get ready for the closing, which we're still hoping to be on the 30th. So that's one thing we want to talk about. Second thing we want to talk about is how the board wants to do the closing. I would recommend a public meeting where all the board could attend, and maybe people who have worked on this project over the year could also attend as some kind of, you know, celebration of what the board has accomplished over this year. But the board can also designate someone to go to the closing in a small office and sign paperwork and have something afterwards. So something I think.
No, I think having them is the right thing to do.
Okay. What about the meeting on the 28th? Monday, would that work for people to? Can be during the day, probably. It's just more documents than anything else. Or
Yeah.
next day, or.
That works for me.
That's fine. That's fine.
Very, I mean, does the public want to celebrate with us?
Well, this meeting is not the closing.
not
This
the
is
closing.
just the prep for the closing.
You guys want to come to that?
It's so much fun.
So much fun.
Yeah.
It's also just if you have a question, something we have the attorney look at them before the.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, then let's just do it during the day, I guess.
Okay.
Later the better,
Later the better. said
or
Greg.
earlier the better.
How early is too
Early.
early for this man?
Early.
I would love an early one, yeah, the trustees, they do like 8 AM, 8:30, that's like all great in the morning.
6.
Greg's eating lunch at 8 AM.
What time do you start working normally?
Usually we're starting at 7.
Okay, so what's good for you then?
What time are we talking? What, morning or afternoon? I'm free after 3. I'll make myself free after 3.
We could do 3:30, as long as.
I'd rather do it at the end of the day,
Okay,
because I know you guys won't get up early. I know I'll be the only one.
that's where we trouble.
Not be good.
Yeah, there's nothing scheduled, so we do it 3:30 the day, that works.
3:30 on the 28th.
And then
Fine.
I will take
Fine.
closing date.
You mean 3:30 in the morning though, don't you?
Yeah.
Tokyo
Oh,
time.
I'm still sleeping then.
Oh, okay.
I'm just getting home.
Stumbling in.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any questions on where we are with we're still looking at the 30th, as far as I know,
so we should be available for the 20th and the 30th, is what I'm hearing.
28th, yeah.
yeah,
Okay, the 30th,
We would
regular
do the
time?
30th in the afternoon.
it'll probably be during the day, yeah.
Yeah, because the attorneys don't. It's double time for the attorneys at night.
Okay,
And we also want some employees to be able to work.
Yeah. Okay.
And that was so far going smoothly. I met with Aqueduct today on some stuff. Chris Barr has Royal Water coming out sometime soon, which I kind of go through all their rest stuff as well. So we're moving mostly quickly through that, so that's positive.
okay. Issues, issues with the water should still right now go to Woodstock Aqueduct until the closing.
Yeah, and so there will be a weird time when we close, people are still sending checks to Aqueduct, and we're kind of working that process how for them to receive that money, then transfer it to us. And so we're working on those small things that are like first like week and a half of just issues.
And then update, you also do.
Yeah.
Okay. Update on wastewater treatment plant.
Yeah, so as you know, the board, well, 2 months ago, agreed to kind of have the engineers look at different, potential outcomes for the plant. They are close to finishing that. I have a meeting with them and our wastewater crew and public works on Thursday to kind of go over where they're at with their cost estimate and the new design and how that will look. After that point, they have a schedule kind of sketched out for then want to meet with the select board and move forward with what the new design would be. And one of those conversations would be when we want to have a potential vote, bond vote for the new sewer plant and what that would look like. So that as water is slowly gearing down, wastewater is gearing back up. So we'll just change hats and go from there. So I should have an update Thursday afternoon for the board. And we kind of go from there.
Okay. Right. Next up is executive session. So I'll consider a motion to enter executive session under 1 VSA 313. Discuss potential contracts that have to make a specific finding and premature general public knowledge will clearly place the public body or person involved at a substantial disadvantage.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Fine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thanks.
Thank you. Eight, 2 hours, 15 minutes almost. We got this.
We're recording what you were getting. That's now part of,
Public record.
I'll make sure Kitty purposes that.
She puts that as the thumbnail. Okay. Back of the longest packet, doing minutes. I'm not gonna wait for her.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make a motion to approve February 18th, February 19th, February 25th. March. Which is reorganization, March 7th, March 11th, March 14th, March 24th,
31.
March 31st, thank you for getting ahead of me, and March 31st, the first meeting, 4:45, and then March 31st, 5 p.m.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.